Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Jawad Tehami and these are the headlines. Kashmiris on both sides of line of control are observing the accession to Pakistan Day with a renewed pledge to continue the struggle for freedom. On this day in 1947, true representatives of the Kashmiris unanimously passed the resolution of Kashmir's accession to Pakistan. In his message on the day, Prime Minister Imran Khan reassured Pakistan's commitment to stand by the Kashmiris in their struggle for freedom. Beijing says it will respond to any attempt by the UK to sanction Chinese officials over new Hong Kong security law. In an interview, China's envoy to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, said London should chart its own foreign policy rather than dance to the tune of Washington. Tensions between London and Beijing are rising over a host of issues, including Hong Kong and KUWAIT. Iran says both Tehran and Baghdad were harmed by the US operation that led to the assassination of top General Qasem Soleimani. Foreign Minister Jawad Zarif said this in a joint press conference with his Iraqi counterpart Fuad Hussein in Baghdad. This is Zarif's first visit to Iraq since Al-Qadmi took office as Prime Minister in April. A record increase in the global number of COVID-19 cases has been reported over the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization says almost 260,000 people tested positive overnight, increasing the toll to over 14.2 million with more than 601,000 deaths. Brazil has reported over 28,000 infections and 971 fatalities overnight, increasing the death toll to nearly 79,000. In Pakistan, 46 people lost their lives in the last 24 hours, raising the total to 5,568 with nearly 263,000 cases. And in Formula One, Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton has won the Hungarian Grand Prix for a record 8th time. Red Bull's Max Verstappen made a stellar recovery after a crash to finish on second spot, while Hamilton's teammate Valtteri Bottas finishes third on the podium. Those are the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Prime Minister Imran Khan says Pakistan is committed to the Kashmiri people and stands with them in their struggle for freedom. Marking the accession to Pakistan Day, Khan said Kashmiri's right to self-determination is recognized by the UN Security Council and international law. Khan said Pakistan will continue to fight for justice for Kashmiris as they struggle against the brutal and illegal actions of the Hindutva supremacist India. The Prime Minister said he is confident that justice will prevail in the occupied valley and Kashmiris will be free one day. This comes as Kashmiris on both sides of the line of control are observing the accession to Pakistan Day with a renewed pledge to continue the struggle for freedom. 73 years ago, today, at a meeting of all the Jammu and Kashmir Muslim Conference in Srinagar, true representatives of the Kashmiris unanimously passed the resolution of Kashmir's accession to Pakistan. The historic resolution called for the accession of the state of Jammu and Kashmir to Pakistan. The decision was a testimony to the fact that the people of Kashmir had linked their future with Pakistan.
As 13 million Kashmiris languish under Indian oppression, tyranny and brutality, they are remembering the Kashmir accession day when they decided to join Pakistan instead of India. A decision that was bulldozed by the greed of Hari Singh, who sold off the valley against the will of its people to New Delhi. International rights groups say Indian occupation forces have martyred over 100,000 Kashmiris since 1989, close to 100 this year so far. Pakistan has fought on every forum the case for the right of self-determination of the Kashmiris and the UN-mandated plebiscite in the valley. The occupied Kashmir has been under New Delhi's crushing curfew and communications blackout for the past 349 days.
The Indian government has decided to start the construction of a Hindu temple at a disputed religious site in Ayodhya from early August. Officials say Prime Minister Narendra Modi will lay the foundation stone of the temple at the site of the 16th century Babri Mosque. Last year, India's apex court allowed Hindus to build a temple on the site, which was demolished by Hindu mobs in 1992. This had sparked countrywide riots in which thousands of people lost their lives. In Afghanistan, 2 district police chiefs have been killed in separate IED blasts in Zabul and Paktika provinces. In Zabul, Nobahar governor says police chief of the district died after his vehicle struck a roadside mine in Shahr-e-Safa. He said 4 security personnel were also wounded in the explosion. Police in Paktika province say the chief of Surobi district was killed by a blast while he was on his way to defend a security checkpoint. They said 3 of his guards were also killed in the bombing. The Taliban have claimed responsibility for the Paktika province killing, but no group has claimed the responsibility for the Zabul blast so far. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has accused India of appropriating its heritage and distorting history. Tensions between the 2 countries have risen after Kathmandu issued a map including regions that Delhi claims ownership of. Nepal also claimed that the disputed religious site of Ayodhya was its territory and the Hindu deity Lord Ram was also Nepalese. Prime Minister Oli said Kathmandu has been suppressed culturally and facts have been twisted. The Prime Minister said India has created a fake Ayodhya provenance of the Hindu Lord Ram as a pretext to occupy the Babri Mosque. India has reported its highest single-day spike in COVID-19 cases as nearly 39,000 people tested positive in the last 24 hours. The Health Ministry said the total number of infections has reached over 1.07 million. The ministry said 543 more people died overnight, raising the toll to nearly 27,000. It said Maharashtra is the worst affected state, having over 300,000 cases and more than 11,000 fatalities. Officials said for 17 of the last 20 days, the number of people recovering from disease in Delhi remained higher than newly detected cases. But they said no other state in the country has come close to such a trend. Pakistan has reported 46 deaths from the COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, raising the toll to 5,568. The Health Ministry says 1,579 cases were reported overnight as the tally crossed 263,000. The ministry said over 204,000 people have recovered from the virus so far. It said there are now over 59,000 active cases in the country, among which 1,763 are critically ill. Sindh is the worst hit province with over 112,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 89,000 cases. A record high number of the COVID-19 cases has been recorded across the world in the past 24 hours. The World Health Organization says some 260,000 people tested positive in one day. The number of global cases has now crossed 14.2 million with more than 600,000 deaths. In Brazil, 921 deaths were recorded and over 28,000 people infected overnight, with the death toll approaching 78,000. Details in this report.
The COVID-19 pandemic is raging across the world once again, breaking grim records every day and overwhelming healthcare systems. US deaths from the novel coronavirus have exceeded 140,000 as cases continue to rise in 43 out of 50 states. The pandemic is also not letting up in Southern America, where Mexico and Brazil are the worst hit. But Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro has ruled out any lockdown measures, saying they have suffocated the country's economy.
Depression kills more than the virus COVID-19, so we have to face the problem the coronavirus pandemic keeping the head up. Regrettably, people are going to die. People are going to die.
South Africa now ranks 5th in the world for coronavirus cases as an aggressive outbreak hits the African continent. The country reported more than 13,000 new cases, with a tally above 350,000. In Australia, the opening of Parliament has been delayed by several weeks due to a second wave in most populous states. The new outbreaks in Spain have forced regional officers to announce a ban on gatherings of over 10 people. Elsewhere, thousands of angry protesters came out in Israel against the government's handling of the pandemic.
We are protesting against our government that doesn't do nothing for the citizen. Everything is closed, everything is open. We don't really know what's going on with the corona, with the numbers. People don't know if they have food to eat tomorrow. We want answer, we want food, we want our money back. And it's very sad.
In Asia, China has reported 60 new COVID-19 cases on the mainland, of which 13 were domestically transmitted, while South Korea's new daily virus cases hovered below 40 for the second straight day. The country identified 34 new cases, raising the total caseload to 13,745.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel says European Union leaders may not reach a deal on a coronavirus stimulus plan. Her comments come as marathon negotiations ran into a third day and acrimony mounted over the demands of rich but thrifty countries. Germany and France are seeking a deal on a $2.06 trillion economic recovery package to rescue the bloc's economies. The EU says it's facing worst recession since World War II. In their first face-to-face summit since the spring outbreak of the coronavirus in Europe, leaders have framed the summit as a make-or-break moment for nearly 70 years of European integration.
Guten Morgen.
Today we are entering the third day of negotiations, and it is certainly the decisive one. There are different topics: the size of the fund, the style of taxation, also questions of rule of law. I still can't say if it will come to a result. There is a lot of goodwill, but also many positions. I'll make every effort, but it is possible that there is no result.
Viel guten Willen, aber es gibt auch viele.
Beijing says it will respond to any attempt by the UK to sanction Chinese officials following the imposition of a security law in Hong Kong. In an interview, China's envoy to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, said London should chart its own foreign policy rather than dance to the tune of Washington. He said the US imposed sanctions on Chinese officials and Beijing reciprocated the move. Earlier, Britain slapped curbs to target individuals over alleged human rights abuses. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said he would brief the Parliament to outline further measures on Hong Kong and China. Tensions between London and Beijing are rising over a host of issues, including Hong Kong and Huawei. Russia has told Azerbaijan it is carrying out snap combat readiness drills amid border tensions between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Russian Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin says these were carried out in the spirit of goodwill. Russia considers Armenia its strategic partner, but Fomin denied any claims that these drills are linked to tensions on the Azeri-Armenian border. The Defense Ministry says the drills involve about 15,000 service members and 400 aircraft. They also include 26,000 weapons and military hardware and over 100 vessels. Russia's ambassador to the UK, Andrei Kelin, has rejected London's allegations that Moscow's intelligence services tried to steal COVID-19 vaccine research. Talking to media, he also rejected suggestions that Russia had interfered in the UK politics. This comes days before a report into allegations of Russian interference into UK democracy is due to be published by the Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee. The UK, the US and Canada's security services had alleged Russia of targeting vaccine developers. Earlier this week, Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said Russians almost certainly sought to interfere in the 2019 UK election through illicitly acquired documents. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Iran says both Tehran and Baghdad were harmed by the U.S. operation that led to the assassination of the top general Qasem Soleimani. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said this in a joint press conference with his Iraqi counterpart Fouad Hussein in Baghdad. He said Tehran regretted the loss of martyrs Qasem Soleimani and Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. Zarif called a January U.S. drone strike in Baghdad a terrorist operation. He said they are a big loss as they were combating ISIS in the region. Earlier, in a meeting with Zarif, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi called on Tehran to cooperate with Baghdad to establish regional stability. The Iraqi premier said Baghdad seeks to reiterate its positive role in making peace and prosperity in the region. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's corruption trial has resumed after a 2-month break. Netanyahu has now become the first serving Israeli Prime Minister to go on trial. The Israeli Prime Minister was indicted last year on bribery, fraud and breach of trust. Well, Israelis have taken to the streets in almost daily demonstrations against him over handling of COVID-19 crisis and corruption allegations. Protesters have called on Netanyahu to resign, but according to Israeli law, a prime minister charged with a crime is not required to resign. The trial was delayed by several months due to the fights over potential immunity, back-to-back elections and COVID-19. The leader of right-wing Likud party is Israel's longest-serving prime minister, having been in power continuously since 2009. Syria is holding parliamentary elections today after 2 delays because of the COVID-19 pandemic. These are the third parliamentary polls in the war-torn country since the pro-democracy uprising against President Bashar al-Assad in 2011. The vote will be held in government-held areas as well as some areas in the provinces of Al-Hasaka, Idlib and Al-Raqqa with Damascus's partial control. Official data shows some 2,100 candidates are contesting the 250-seat parliament in all 15 Syrian governorates. In the 2016 vote, an alliance led by the ruling Arab Socialist Baath Party bagged 200 out of 250 seats in the unicameral legislature. Libya's government of national accord has dispatched several military vehicles closer to the strategic city of Sirte. The city is a gateway to Libya's main oil terminals that the GNA plans to recapture from warlord Khalifa Haftar's militias. A large number of military vehicles reached Abu Ghadin village as part of Operation Paths to Victory. The military commander said a column of about 200 vehicles moved eastwards from Misrata towards the town of Tavegra. Backed by Turkey, the GNA said it will be recapturing Sirte and an air base of Haftar's Libyan National Army at Jafra. But Egypt has threatened to send troops into Libya if the government and Turkish forces try to seize Sirte. Meanwhile, in a joint statement, France, Italy and Germany said they were ready to consider sanctions on foreign powers violating an arms embargo in Libya. Greece says it is on the verge of signing an agreement on maritime borders with Egypt. Greek ambassador to Egypt, Nikolaos Garidis, said that Turkey will not like the exclusive economic zone demarcation agreement between Greece and Egypt. He said it is up to Ankara to maintain good relations with its neighbors. Secretary of Foreign Relations Committee of the Egyptian Parliament, Tariq Al-Khuli, said the agreement will guarantee the economic rights of Cairo and Athens. He said the demarcation is part of the international community's response to Turkey's practices that have broken international law. Last year, Ankara signed a maritime accord with Tripoli, seeking to create an exclusive economic zone at the Turkey's southern Mediterranean shore. A volunteer at the Saint Pierre at St. Paul Cathedral in Nantes has been detained after a fire tore through the building. Officials said a Rwandan refugee was in charge of locking up the day before the blaze destroyed stained glass windows and the grand organ inside. A lawyer for the man said there was nothing to link him to the fire. Prosecutors said they wanted to clear up inconsistencies and that it would be premature to think he had a role. The authorities have not named the volunteer. Public prosecutor said the fire is believed to have been arson. About 100 firefighters managed to stop the flames from destroying the main structure at the cathedral on Saturday. Kuwait's Crown Prince Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Sabah has taken over some of the 91-year-old ruler's constitutional duties. This comes after Amir Sheikh Sabah Al Ahmed Al Sabah was hospitalized on Sunday and underwent a successful surgery. Sheikh Sabah has ruled Kuwait since 2006. The statement issued by his office did not specify what kind of surgery he underwent. Last year, Sheikh Sabah was admitted to a hospital in the US during an official visit. In August, his office described it as a health setback in Kuwait. He returned to the oil-rich Gulf state in October. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has discussed key issues of further bolstering a war deterrent over the country's military. State media says Kim chaired a Central Military Commission meeting and approved major munitions production plan indices. It said meeting stressed the need to thoroughly arm the young commanding officers. This was followed by a closed meeting to examine the military situation in the Korean peninsula and the potential threat. State media has called the measures taken as historic decision. Pyongyang has threatened to give up its willingness to denuclearize after 3 failed summits between Kim and US President Donald Trump. In the US, the state of Oregon has sued the federal government, accusing Washington of unlawfully detaining protesters in Portland. Oregon's Attorney General has filed a lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security and the Marshals Service in a federal court. The complaint says unidentified federal agents grabbed people off city's streets without any warrants. The Attorney General said she is seeking a temporary restraining order to stop federal authorities from unlawfully detaining the protesters. The federal government says it is trying to restore order in the city under President Donald Trump's executive order to protect monuments. Thousands of Portlanders have held daily demonstrations outside the federal courthouse since the custodial murder of George Floyd. In Panama, 7 people have been murdered in an attack by unknown assailants near the capital, Panama City. The chief prosecutor says bodies of 4 women and 3 men were found near a lake about 80 kilometers north of the capital. The prosecutor said the Gatun Lake victims were of ages between 17 and 22. He said some people who managed to escape the attack are assisting the authorities with the investigation. Authorities said some of the victims had gunshot wounds, but the motive for the attack remains unclear. Victims' family members had reported them missing on Friday after they had gone out for a swim. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has put forward a new global deal to battle growing inequality across the world. The plan aims to create a new model of global governance under ethical frameworks to ensure that power, wealth and opportunities are shared more fairly.
Delivering the annual lecture for the Nelson Mandela Foundation via internet, Guterres said people have suffered enough because of inequality and racism. He added colonialism and patriarchy are the reasons why people are denied their fundamental human rights. He highlighted that inequality starts at the top in global institutions, and these should be reformed to meet the needs of this world. Guterres highlighted the world needs a new social contract which would allow young people to live in dignity. He labeled the pandemic a generational opportunity to build more equal, sustainable world.
After the success of drive-in cinemas during social distancing restrictions amid COVID-19, Paris turns the River Seine into a float-in cinema. What about the streaming cinema in this report?
In Paris, film fans can now munch on their popcorn watching a movie while drifting over the River Seine. People aboard 38 electric boats were treated to a free showing of the 2018 French comedy Le Grand Bain. Each boat can seat up to 6 people who know each other. Others can watch from deck chairs as the screen floats over the Seine.
Super excited. It's a really unique opportunity. I've never seen anything like this in Paris, so super excited.
This is a part of the 6-week summer festival, Paris Plage. Organizers hope to hold similar showings during the course of the festival. Although cinemas have reopened in France, occupancy levels remain very low because of the COVID-19 protocols for social distancing. This serene summer fiesta's open sky cinema was thoroughly enjoyed by movie fans.
I really enjoy open-air cinema. It marks the beginning of the summer, and even if we are already in mid-July, for me it marks the beginning of the Persian adventures. I really enjoy the idea of boats associating the Seine River with a movie on water. I didn't want to miss this.
Paris Plage, a summer fiesta launched in 2002, creates artificial beaches on the banks of the Seine in central Paris and the Bassin de la Villette. It also offers sporting opportunities such as fencing, giant table football, and open-air gyms looking out over the Seine.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned. And in cricket, West Indies have resumed their first innings of the second test against England at Old Trafford. At lunch, West Indies were at 118 for the loss of 2 wickets. The visitors had made 32 runs at the loss of 1 wicket at the end of day 2, while the third day was completely washed out. After losing opener John Campbell cheaply, Craig Braithwaite and Alzadi Joseph steadied the innings. For hosts, Dom Bass and Sam Curran picked 1 wicket each. Windies are 1-0 up in the 3-match series. Arsenal have booked their place in the finals of the FA Cup after beating Manchester City in the semi-finals. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang scored a brace to seal the victory for Gunners at the Wembley Stadium. Aubameyang opened the scoring in the 17th minute, curling home a cross from Nicolas Pepe. He doubled the lead in the second half when he raced away on the angle to slide a composed finish under the keeper. Chelsea will face Manchester United today in the second semi-final of the FA Cup. Brazilian Davison Figueiredo beat American Joseph Benavidez by a technical submission to win the UFC flyweight title in Abu Dhabi. The 32-year-old recorded 3 knockdowns before a rare naked choke ended Benavidez's night after 4 minutes and 48 seconds of the fight. The contest was thrown into jeopardy last week when Figueiredo produced a positive result for COVID-19, but subsequent tests came out negative. Jack Hermanson won the co-main event by submitting Kelvin Gastelum in the very first round. Well, China has raised the flood alert level in the Huai River region to the second highest after days of torrential downpours. Water Resources Ministry says water levels have exceeded in 10 reservoirs by 6.8 meters. The ministry said torrential rains have battered China for 2 weeks from Chongqing to Shanghai. It said flood's prevention situation is severe while water is likely to exceed the maximum level the reservoirs can withstand. The 1,000-kilometer Huai River flows through major agriculture and manufacturing hubs in 3 provinces. Officials say rains have disrupted the supply chain of protective equipment vital in the fight against COVID-19. Nearly 4 million people in India's northeastern state of Assam and neighboring Nepal have been displaced by heavy flooding from monsoon rains. Government officials say dozens have been missing as known deaths rise to 189. The Met Department said overflowing Brahmaputra River, which passes through China's Tibet, India and Bangladesh, has damaged crops. Assam state government says 79 people have died, while more than 2.75 million have been displaced by 3 waves of flood. In Nepal, police say 110 people have died in floods and landslides since June. The Home Ministry says 48 others are still missing. More heavy rains have been predicted in Nepal for the next 4 days. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.